Hello, hello. Welcome to my channel, friends. My name is Lynn, and the goal of this video is hopefully to help you avoid having this in your craft room. I think I have about a dozen different paper trimmers, paper cutters, and I don't really think that anybody needs this many paper trimmers. So what I thought I would do is actually show you all of the things that I've used over the years, what I like about them, what I don't like about them, and maybe that will help you to zero in on the right paper trimmer for you. Paper trimmers, in my mind, and this is just how I think about them, there's maybe 3 classes of trimmers, and I'll go through each of them in turn. But you've got rotary trimmers, which are circular blades. You've got V blade trimmers, which have like a more triangular or a V blade. And then you have your guillotine trimmers, which have a long blade like this and slice downwards. So I'll go through each of those classes of trimmers and paper cutters and show you the ones that I have for each of those different styles. So let's start with rotary trimmers because I only have 2 of them to show, so it'll be easier to get those out of the way. Now this is one of the very first trimmers that I have that I don't use in my card making because it's not super practical for a card maker because it really only measures out to like 2.5 inches. So you can see that's the 2-inch line and that's 2.5, and there's nothing to extend. You know, that's it. What you see is what you get. And what I do like about this trimmer though is it's actually really sharp. So this has a little safety. You can see that circular silver bit there, that's the blade. And as you roll this up and down the track, it is that blade will rotate and slice through your substrate, your paper. The nice thing about this, it's by Carl, which is a nice brand. They make really nice paper trimmers and cutters. One of the things I really like about it is that it's actually, this is a magnet here, and there's like a bit of metal here, so it actually does help to keep your paper like secured down. You still want to hold it, but having that magnet there is pretty nice. It helps to prevent your paper from slipping when you cut. And I always really like this. If it weren't for the fact that it doesn't really have measurements out to like some standard sizes that would be useful for card making, I would probably still be using this. So I do like it a lot, and it's you know, this is the little safety feature. Yeah, it's really good. So I really just don't use this anymore, but it is a cute little, I totally forgot that this was a rotary blade trimmer. I think I once said when I was reviewing this one that I have never used a rotary blade trimmer like on a track like this before, and that's untrue. I totally forgot that I had that and that it is a rotary style trimmer. Now, if you recall how small that blade is, this is much larger. If you can see that circular blade there, the diameter on this blade is much larger than that little Carl one. This is the Tim Holtz rotary cutter paper trimmer, and it's nice. It's pretty heavy duty. It can cut 12 inches. It's got your markings on the top, the middle, and the bottom. It's got the ledge at the top and the bottom, so you can push this up against this lip or that lip, wherever you feel most comfortable. And the markings here, it's engraved. You can hear as I run my fingernail through there. So, you know, this is not going to rub off. So that's really nice in terms of longevity. And if you watched any of my videos where I talk about trimmers, this is not my favorite. I use this mostly if I don't care about how clean of a cut I'm getting, and if I don't care about how accurate of a cut I'm getting, because I always get fuzzies when I cut. And I appreciate everybody leaving comments about, am I like tilting it a little bit, inwards? I am. Am I slicing kind of like clean, even pressure? I am. All the things, right? I watched the Tim Holtz video. I watched the Tonic Studios video on how to use this trimmer. I do feel like if you need so many different how-to videos on how to use such a basic supply, there's something to that I feel is should not be necessary, to be honest. But I am really grateful that somebody did leave a comment saying she was experiencing all the same issues that I was. She contacted customer support and they kind of had her run through all of the things, right? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Much like, the many tips that I've gotten from some really kind folks helping me to, try to get this to work the way that it should. And she had already tried all of those things, but she kind of, she went along with all of the things they were asking her to do. And ultimately, they sent her a new trimmer. I think the whole thing, not just a new blade. I think the whole thing. And she said it works really great. It's the new one. So I think that she and I just got bad ones. Maybe just a lemon. And because for as many people who have said that they are experiencing the same issues that I described experiencing, there are just as many, if not more, people who really, really love this trimmer. So it's, and I have always said this in my videos, I'm sure it's just me. So this is not to say that this is the product itself. And I was really happy to hear that, the one viewer who left a comment after getting a replacement, it works really well for her. Now, one of the things that the reasons why I got this is because it is a heavy duty trimmer. It's marketed as being able to kind of cut through different substrates of different thicknesses, even something like, your medium weight chipboard, corrugated, cardstock, cardboard, and, things like that are maybe if you are a mixed media artist that you would need to cut through. So if that's you, if you do have the need to cut through thicker materials, maybe like more uneven materials, like your corrugated cardboard or, things that are beyond just cardstock, this might be a really, really good choice for you. But like I said, in my craft room, it's not my preferred paper trimmer because I can't get clean cuts on it. And I don't like how it measures here. So the measurement ruler is here when you're operating or trying to measure something that is smaller than 6 inches. This is like engraved in the board here. So you have 1/4 of an inch markings that you can really precisely line up to. I love that. Love this. And it is marked down to 1/8 of an inch. However, when you get out to here, the little arm that swings out that extends to allow you to measure out to 12 inches, this actually sits about 1/4 of an inch lower than your paper. So at the angle that I'm sitting at right now, that looks like it's, let's see, that looks like it's lined up to me at the 8.5 inch mark. But it's actually, if I tilt and I move myself so that I'm actually looking at it more from this angle, if I look at the paper more from this angle, this looks more like it's at like 1/8 of an inch shy of 8.5. So my point is just that when your ruler is not right up against the thing you're trying to measure, it can be it can have like a visual illusion of being on the mark when it really isn't because of your viewing angle. And so if you need like really accurate, precise cuts, like even right here, I'm sitting like right in front of this. It's actually a sliver off of 8.5. On camera, it looks more like that to me. And here, let's see, on camera, that looks like, which is top down. So that looks like just shy of 8.5. And from where I'm sitting, this looks like 8 3/8 of an inch instead of 8.5. So that's the sort of thing that, just depending on what you need this for, if you need really accurate cuts for, say, like a mini album and you're hand cutting your pages, and it's nice when they're all the same size, it's going to be hard to, not impossible, just hard to always hit the mark, because you're going to always have, the most precise that you can be is if your head is right over top. And not everybody crafts with a camera overhead that they can, preview or monitor. So usually when I'm using this, if I'm using it on camera, I don't even look at this physically. I look at my computer to see what my camera is seeing, and I line it up that way. So that's just one of those things that I feel, if you don't need super precise cuts, then, this is kind of okay. It's just fine. Well, if you don't need super precise cuts bigger than 6 inches, up to 6 inches is actually great. I love it. But beyond 6 inches, where you have to rely on this ruler, I am not a huge fan. And so it is nice to have this extension, but you're not gonna, just depending on how you use this, you're not gonna really get, or it's possible to get, imprecise measurements. And if you're not really paying close attention and viewing it at a very specific angle, you might more often than not be actually off the mark. So those are the 2 rotary trimmers. Now getting into V-blade trimmers as the next category of trimmer. So I'll bring this out next because it's also bitonic, and it has the exact same thing that I don't like, where the measuring ruler that extends this so that you can measure longer pieces of paper or cardstock, it too is about 1/4 of an inch below where your paper sits. So it has the same issues as the previous one, but otherwise it's very similar. It's got the markings, it's engraved here, so that's going to be nice and long lasting. It's not going to rub off. This operates, this class of trimmers operates on a V-blade. Now, your rotary blade is an entire circular blade. It's like a circular disc, and the whole thing is sharp, and the whole thing kind of rotates as it's slicing through. So you're getting kind of more blade, for your money, and that sort of blade is going to last longer than something like this, which is just a little triangular blade, and it is kind of in a V in terms of the actual sharp areas. So that edge is sharp, and that edge on that side is sharp. So you can, and you should, cut using both edges so that you get the most out of your blade before you have to replace it, because this is a consumable item. This will get dull over time, and it will need to be replaced. And you can kind of see how far down that goes. So you really can't cut anything super, super thick with this. And so paper trimmers like these aren't really meant to cut through something like your medium weight chipboard. which is going to come pretty close to the full thickness of this blade, if not exceed the thickness of this blade. So trimmers like these are great because they, especially this one, I mean, the profile, it's nice and thin. This is pretty light. It's pretty narrow. It goes out to about 4 1/4 inches. Still can give you measuring out to 12 inches in both directions. In fact, this goes out to 16 inches if you swing the arm out. So it's actually quite, quite wide. So if you are a scrapbooker and you use 12 by 12 papers, you can use this to trim your 12 by 12 papers down. And the nice thing about this is that you can if you always like to cut in a downward motion, you can just cut in the downward motion until that edge of the blade gets dull. Take this out, flip it 180, and then continue slicing to exercise the other end of the blade. So to get the most out of your blade, you can just make sure that you're using both edges. But this, if you are more comfortable, sliding it in one direction, you can actually flip the blade so that you're always sliding in that direction, and you can still exercise both ends of the blade. Or if you're like me, just sometimes slice up, sometimes slice down, and that's how you can exercise your blades. So who's this good for? If you have the need to cut 12 by 12 papers every once in a while, and you are not too particular about hitting precise measurements beyond 4 inches wide, this could be a good option. Now, you could always measure the other, using this for your measuring, or just make a pencil mark, measure with a ruler and then make a pencil mark for where you want to cut. But I tend to not, if I want to cut down a panel, I tend not to want to have to measure it with a ruler and then line that up with, this, in order to cut. I just want to be able to use use measuring marks to cut. So, so that's this one. It's, I don't generally keep this in my craft room. This is kind of a spare. I think I got this in a mystery bag, from Tonic. And so I keep this kind of downstairs in the living room when I'm doing my crafting down there. And then that brings me to my Fiskars V-blade trimmers. This one I kind of forgot that I have. This is a cute one. This is one that I've had since I was in high school. And it's probably one of the first trimmers that I ever have. And the blade is still super sharp on this. It's a teeny tiny little V blade. Look at how tiny that is. It's smaller than even the Tonic one just now. But I took a cross-country trip, train ride, and I brought some crafting materials with me, and this is one of the things I brought with me as my paper cutter. So it is kind of nice. It goes up to 8.5 inches. So if you want to cut down your 8.5 inch, U.S. letter size papers, you could do that on this. And so so that works pretty nicely. It's a really sharp blade. I have not had to replace this. You can see how old it is. Look how faded it is. I sort of feel like the Fiskars blade replacements used to be like bank, like super sharp, kept their sharpness. But I feel like over time, that was one of the frustrations I had with this trimmer. If you watch my earlier videos on my channel, you'll see this trimmer a lot because this was my go-to for a lot of reasons. I really, really liked this trimmer a lot. So one of the things that is really great about it is that there's actually a metal guide wire in the scoring. You can't really see it. Let's see this. So if you see that wire, it's actually right where the blade is. So when you have your paper, let's say we have this through here. So you can actually see like exactly where on your project where that line is going to cut. That's really awesome. I really, really like that guide wire, and it's really a nice function. There's no guesswork as to where your cut mark is going to be. So if you did need to cut and you had some pencil marks where you wanted to cut, you can actually see whether that guide wire lands exactly on your pencil marks. So I really like this trimmer for that reason. And the markings are great. I also really love with the Fiskars trimmers that they mark down to a 1/16 of an inch. Really love that. And they've got some really common markings for photos and for card makers. So you have 2 by 3.5, which I think is common for wallet size photos. Then you got 3 by 5s in both landscape and portrait, and then you've got 4.25 by 5.5, which is your A2 size card. You got 4 by 6 and 5 by 7. The arm that comes out, now this is really just to show you the difference. This is the other thing I really love. When this arm extends out, it's actually flush pretty much with the original platform. It's like barely any gap there. It's not like the Tonic Studios trimmers where you have a 1/4 of an inch gap. So if you're measuring out to like 10 inches or whatever, your paper is pretty much on the mark. So whether you're viewing at it from like way on this side or straight on or way from this side, it's really a lot easier to hit the mark because your paper literally touches the mark. So if you are looking for precise cuts, I feel like on a system like this where the extension ruler is actually flush with the original platform, it's a lot easier. It's not impossible to do on those other 2 trimmers I showed. It's just a lot easier and faster for you to hit the mark reliably on something like this. Why I've moved away from using this as my main trimmer is because, and this is, you can get a scoring blade and a cutting blade for this. I think it comes with both. I'm not exactly sure. So you can use this to score with as well if you wanted. But the reason why I moved away from this is because this blade, I just feel like I was having to replace this at a really fast clip. And you can kind of see it's not super big of a blade. I think it's pretty on par with the one that I showed earlier from Tonic Studios. I think it's bigger, slightly bigger than the mini travel one that I showed earlier from Fiskars, but it's not super thick. So again, you would not use this for something like your chipboard or anything thick, super thick, or multiple sheets. You can probably do a couple sheets, but I wouldn't do too many layers, just depending on how thick of the paper is, how heavyweight your cardstock is. So yeah, I don't really use this a lot anymore, and I also keep this in a different room that's not my craft room. So then I have one last V-blade trimmer, and that is this one. So this is the We Are Memory Keepers, We Are Makers all-in-one tool. And if you told me I could only pick one trimmer, this is probably the trimmer that I would pick. It made my list for craft room essentials, both the budget and the budget is no limit, because it's not the those other trimmers might be around $30, $35. The Tim Holtz one was pretty expensive. I think it's originally came out at like $100, but these days it's always like super clearance. You can get it for like $50, $60 without looking too hard, I think. And this I think is like $60 or $70. And so as trimmers go, it's not the least expensive one out there, but it does have like 10, 12 different functionalities. But if we're looking at just the cutting aspects of this, I really, really like this a lot. If you watch my videos, my current videos, you'll know I use this pretty much all the time. And if we take a little bit of a comparison look at the actual blade, I think this is why these blades, for me anyways, last a little bit longer than, you know, some of the other ones. Let me see if I can get this to focus. So if you look, it's a bigger blade than the this is the tonic one. So you can see it is going to be capable of cutting slightly thicker materials, and so that's one of the things that I think might be contributing to the its ability to actually last longer also, because there's just more metal there. There's more of a cutting blade there as compared. And the Fiskars one, I think it's pretty much similar to the tonic in terms of the size of the blade. So this one, I just feel like I was having to really replace it at a fast clip. And with these, with any V-blade trimmer, you kind of know that you're gonna have to replace the blade. That is just a fact of life, because that's how these work. But you can kind of see, like, by comparison, how much bigger this blade here is. So that's one of the things. Actually, I think this one is smaller than the tonic blade. So that's one of the things that I have found, that even though, yeah, I have to replace this blade, it just hasn't. It's lasted a lot longer than each of these. So I'm really happy with that aspect of it. Like, I still feel like I have to replace it more often than I would like, because we want to just be able to use all the things for forever. But this is a consumable piece here. But the blade does last long. It can, it's got like a slightly, you know, as you saw, a slightly larger blade, so it can cut through slightly thicker materials. I still probably wouldn't cut medium weight chipboard. I would maybe cut lightweight chipboard on this. So if you need to cut thick stuff, I think that Tim Holtz rotary cutter is your best bet, or a guillotine. And this does have the arm extension that goes out to 14 inches, and just like the Fiskars one, now this extends perfectly flush with the original platform. I really, really love that aspect. And the each measuring tick here, which goes down to 1/8 of an inch, it's actually got, you can kind of hear, it's engraved into the plastic. So if you actually look at where it's engraved and not at the black line, you can really line up your paper really precisely with that engraved groove there. So really, really awesome. And then, you know, there's like all the other functionality that you have with this, which I think is what makes it a really good deal, even if you are on a budget, because I feel like if you don't have the other things, this will save you some money, because you have a scoreboard here, you have an envelope maker, you have a stamping platform. I don't really love the stamping on this, but you have it. You've got hole punches galore, and pom-pom maker, and all sorts of things, right? There's a lot of things I don't use this for, but if you're just talking for the trimming aspect of it, it still would be the one that I would pick. And especially because of the fact that any of the V-blade trimmer does have the ability to just drop your blade into the middle of a panel and then cut. And you can see how cleanly that cut. It's a nice clean cut. nice and sharp, pretty sharp on the backside, even though this isn't a brand new. You can see some fuzzies, but it's not a brand new blade. And for me, I actually, let me slice. So pretty sharp. The occasional fuzzy, you can kind of see that right there. But not too bad on the backside either. I would definitely use this a bit longer, even though it's starting to get fuzzies on the back. It's when it starts to have the rolled edge on the back, that's when I replace the blade. I really just drive these these blades into the ground before I replace them. But out of the box, when you first get a new blade, it's really sharp. You get nice crisp cuts, and I really like that. I'm a little bit particular about that, so I do like it for that. And if you don't like having fuzzies at all, you would just need to replace your blades a little bit more regularly. I like to stretch. I like to use them until they're super dull, and you'll know when they start to like crush your paper instead of slicing through. That's definitely when it's time to replace them. So that's my last V-blade trimmer. Then the other class of trimmers is guillotine trimmers. So guillotine trimmers look a little something like this. And it's basically a blade that's on an arm. And as it comes down, it's actually going to hit another blade that's here. And the two sort of, coming against each other, it's called self-sharpening. It's not really sharpening your blade. It's just helping to keep that blade sharp. It just keeps it from getting dull too fast. But it's not, you can't like just keep exercising this up and down and expect this to get sharper and sharper. But it's going to help to maintain the that edge on your blade. This is from Fiskars. I really like this. It's one of my oldest paper cutters. It can go out to 12 by 12. It is kind of big, kind of bulky, because it's not collapsible. You've got this whole platform here to work with. The lines are painted on. They're not engraved into the plastic, so you can see the fading that's happening here. See how like that's not quite as white as this, and I can feel it too. I can feel the raised lines here where it's been painted, and this is super smooth. I'm mostly a card maker. I make little things like 4 1/4, 5 1/2. This is my area here, so you can kind of see like I'm trimming things 4 1/4 and smaller really, and this is where it's just me putting my hands here to hold down the paper and whatnot. That's what's rubbing all of this off. So it's been probably 15 years that I've had this, I think. Maybe 10. I don't know. It's been a long time, and it's worn, but it's still legible. I can still see all the numbers just fine. I really love that this is just like Fiskars, the other Fiskars one. It's marked down to 1/16 of an inch, which I do use sometimes. So I like it for that reason. Oh, I didn't even note. Okay. One of the things that some people really love about the We Are Makers one is that it's marked down to 1/8 of an inch, and it's actually also labeled down to 1/8 of an inch. So you don't have to count your lines when when you're following along with measurements that say, 3 7/8 or whatever. So that is one really nice feature. This doesn't have tick marks down to 1/16 of an inch, but they do label every single tick mark. So that is that's something that's I think very specific with We Are Makers. I don't think too many other brand trimmers will label all of the tick marks. So that's a nice feature of those. But yeah, this does have tick marks down to 1/16 of an inch, and I really love that. And now I have this, and for the longest time, this was the only guillotine trimmer that I had, because you really only need the one. This blade really doesn't need to get replaced. You could, I guess, if you really like nicked like cut something that you weren't supposed to and you put like a gouge or a nick into it. But you know, for what it costs, which might be like $35-$40, it's nice because I haven't had to buy replacement blades. And so when you buy a guillotine trimmer, that's kind of the lifetime cost of it. You don't have to continue to buy blades to replace. So, you know, that's it's a nice deal, kind of, when you think about it in that way. And the only thing that I found myself faced with when I was using this was, because I make cards a lot, I had to bring this out every time I wanted to cut just like a little sentiment strip. So I thought, wouldn't it be handy if I had like a little baby guillotine? And so I got myself a little baby guillotine, stuck with Fisker's brand that I love, and I got this little guy. So this is like a 4x6 guillotine, super cute. Got the tick marks down to 1/16 of an inch. Really love that. This one's not friendly to folks who want to be on the metric because it only has measurements to in inches. But it was great. And I thought, man, this is really nice. And I can't cut a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch panel with it. I was still finding myself bringing this out a lot of times to cut my A2 size panels. And I didn't really think that through when I bought this one because there were other sizes to choose from. And so, you know, if I had it to do over again, maybe I would have like skipped this one and then just gotten this, which I didn't buy. Being a Spellbinders influencer, had the opportunity to receive this from Spellbinders, and it's a really nice size. So this is it can fit 8.5 inch wide paper under the blade, which is nice because then you can cut down your US letter size papers. So if you're cutting down like a full sheet of paper and getting 4, A2 panels from it, you could do that with this because it fits 8.5 this way. You can cut it to 5.5 and then take each of those halves and further cut them down to 4 1/4. Really, really lovely. This does have both centimeters and inches, and it has markings down to 1/16 of an inch. I love this. If you wanted to get like a guillotine trimmer and you don't craft with 12 by 12 papers, I think this is a really good size because of all of those reasons. The fact that you can trim your US letter size papers down to the size that you need if you're a card maker, whether it's like 5 by 7 or 4 1/4 by 5. You have some pretty popular markings. This can, this doesn't have any extension or any arm, so really it can only go out to 6 and then 8. But all in all, I think it's really a good size. So not to be too Goldilocks about things, but the 12 by 12 I feel is pretty large for my, for most of my card making needs. But I do sometimes use 12 by 12 papers, so that's why I got it initially. And then this one was just like a little too small because I can't cut my A2 panels with this. 4 1/4 actually ends up being like flush against this edge of the plastic up top. It bows out a little bit, so this is wider than 4 1/4 here. So it's one of those things where this might be a little bit too small for, most of my card making in terms of panels. Like most of the time I'm cutting maybe 4 by 5 1/4, but you don't really have the 5 1/4 here. And however, though, I do still bring this out. You probably have seen, because I notice it when I edit my videos. Sometimes I bring this out to trim something and then I put it away and then I take this out. And the reason is because often for smaller size things like sentiment banners, this one is really easier to work with, especially since if I need, I can easily take out the safety little plastic here. Don't do this if you don't feel comfortable doing it, but I feel comfortable with these blades. They stay up. It's pretty tight there, so it won't just slide or crash down on you. And what's nice with being able to remove this is that you can if you have like a small bit of paper, you can kind of hold it a little bit more securely, especially if you just need to take like a little sliver off. And so I like it for that reason, where this plastic is really wide. So if I had to fit like a narrow strip here, it's really hard to kind of get it under there and then get it lined up where I need it to be lined up. And it's really hard to take this plastic guardrail thing out, which I guess is probably good. It's a good safety feature, but for me, sometimes I just need to get rid of it so that I can hold something a little bit closer to the blade. And so those are the guillotine trimmers. And why do I like guillotine trimmers? They are really, really sharp. I always get really clean cuts. You always get clean cuts, super clean, like, factory edge clean on the top and the bottom. So with a V-blade trimmer, a lot of times you can get like a nice clean cut from the top where the blade touches. But then from the back, it might have some fuzzies, it might have some rolled edges, it just might not look as clean, which maybe it doesn't really matter for most applications. Like if you're making a card and that gets glued down anyways, nobody's going to look at it from the back. But let's say if you're making maybe like a, like what if you were making a mini album and it's like, you only have the one layer and it's visible from the front and the back maybe. So there might be applications where you would want a nice finish on the front and the back side of your cuts. And so I find whenever I want something that is got a nice finish cut edge that I can measure precisely down to the 16th of an inch, any of my 3 guillotines are good for that job. And so the size guillotine that might be best in your craft room might just depend on the size papers that you're using and the what you're crafting, the size project you're crafting. So if you are a fan of 12 by 12 papers, having this large one is really nice. And if you mainly just use maybe 6 by 6 papers and US letter size papers, I think this size is really nice. The 6 I think it's like 6.5 by 8.5. This baby one is nice to have, but I would say, probably not very essential. I use it because I have it, and so it serves a very particular use case for me, but only because I have it. If I had this, I would probably find other ways to cut the little banners that I use for this small trimmer for. So I find, the guillotine trimmers are really, really fabulous. So besides what I've showed on camera, I also have recently acquired the We Are Makers Cinch Stock Cutter. This is another type of, it's kind of a guillotine trimmer because it's a long blade on an arm. The slicing action is a little bit different. So it comes down, but as it's coming down, it kind of comes down and then it kind of travels, that way. And this is for if you need to cut through like thick stacks. We're talking like, 1/4 inch stacks or 1/2 inch or a full inch or so of paper, of thicker materials. I have a whole video, first look video, and a follow-up where I cut through various different types of substrates and thicknesses, and so if you're interested, those are separate videos, but this is really, I got it so that I can really trim the edges of my notebooks that I make so that I get nice, like evenly cut edges, and it just has a nicer finish to it. And so the other thing that I use it for also is to cut my card bases. So it makes it really easy to cut down on like a lot of card bases in one go. So I have that. a little bit too big of a trimmer to fit under this camera here. And then another trimmer paper cutter that I have that I didn't really think about until I was doing that first look video of the stack cutter is I also have, and this one's huge, so definitely can't fit it here, but it's, I have a cutter, a mat board cutter that is it's for actually framing photos and art. So it has the mitered, 45-degree angled blade, or housing, that houses your blade at that angle so that you can get that angled cut, and you can cut open an aperture in the middle of a mat board to do, to frame photos yourself and do some custom framing yourself if you want to. And so I have that as a tool also that I forgot about. And that one's big because I think I can mat up to, what's bigger than 11, I think it's the size up from like 11 by 17. I think I can go one size up from that, or two sizes up from that. So yeah, that's another one that I can't show, but not really for card making. But I guess if I'm being honest, I have to add it to my tally of the number of paper trimmers that I have. So really, does one person need all of these? No. As I mentioned, if I could only pick one to cover most of my needs, I would probably pick the all-in-one tool because you can cut in the middle of a panel. You can get very sharp cuts when the blade is newer. You can get really precise measurements, repeatable time and time again with ease. And it can cut 12 by 12 papers. It can cut down to, smaller strips as well. So all around, this is really nice. I still use from time to time pretty much almost everything that I brought on camera here, just for different reasons. Probably the only trimmer I don't use is that really tiny Fiskars one that is my sort of travel paper trimmer, and the Carl rotary trimmer, because it doesn't really have measurings that help all that much for card making. But otherwise, most everything, it may not make itself on camera here because some of those trimmers actually reside in other rooms in my house, but it's way more than a single person definitely needs. So hopefully this video kind of helps you to narrow in on a trimmer that is right for your needs. So if you often need to cut different substrates, thicker materials, the Tim Holtz rotary cutter is really good. If you're looking for super clean cuts, reliable measurements, any of the guillotines are great. And if you're looking for just an all-around great choice for all types of cutting, the We Are Makers all-in-one is really fabulous. And that's, I think, a roundup of everything that I know about trimmers and a look at all of the trimmers that I have. I hope this video has been helpful, and if you enjoyed it, please leave a like. And if you enjoy the content that I create, I hope you'll also subscribe to my channel. And until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.